Following total atomic annihilation, the rebuilding of this great nation of ours may fall to you. That's why we here at Vault Boys WV will take you on an oral tour of the beautiful state of West Virginia. There's no other place to be better prepared for the impending fallout. Now we go live to our team of experts.
Hello and welcome to episode 5, season 2 of Vault Boys WV. If you didn't know, this is a weekly podcast bridging the gap between Fallout 76 and West Virginia through history, culture, and personal experiences. Some of it has references, and the rest is just our local take. From holler to highway, we've got you covered 6 ways to Sunday. I'm your resident Appalachian scribe, Dave Chaffins, and joining me is the dark horse of Charlie West, Austin O'Connor. How you doing, Austin?
How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How's the dark horse today?
I'm great.
Are you a big black horse in a cherry tree?
Oh, God. Are we going to intro every episode with, like, a dad joke? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I have certain
KT
brands.
Tunstall? Why do I know that that's... Why? It's been 10 years since I've heard that song, and I still know. All right. But, yeah. So, I'm good.
It's good.
I'm glad it's cold.
You're glad. You're here.
I don't want it any colder than this, but I was really happy not to walk outside and immediately start sweating this week.
Yeah.
Because that got... Whew.
Well, now you're down. I mean, in Huntington, you're on the river, and I guess in Asheville you're on the river, but here you're on the river.
Yeah,
like
I was like near the river there.
Yeah.
Like here,
you look out your window, river,
and the river is I could throw a football in the river from my apartment. Yeah. Like it's right there.
And what that means is when it gets hot, it gets real humid.
Yes,
and then you just sweat, and then it's just sweating
profusely
all of the time.
It's a great image for all the listeners out there. But no, it was like I swear you would walk outside and you're just miserable immediately. So this morning, I made my coffee. And I had my sweater on, and I walked to work, and I was just a nice little brisk morning, and it was so nice. It used to be like I'd get to work, and I felt like I needed to shower because it was like 8 a.m. and I'm already drenched in sweat because it's like 85 degrees. Now it's like I get there and I'm comfortable and
you're feeling
notice my voice is so light right now. This is what it feels like in the fall. But in the summer, I am miserable. So miserable. This has been my TED Talk.
So this has been my TED Talk. I like that. So confession time. You ready?
Yes.
Here's the confession. Every morning, I see you walking to work, and you got your headphones in.
Yeah,
you're walking around. Sometimes
is it most mornings you see me at some point?
It's like out of the week I'll see you 4 times.
Yeah, because I feel like we kind of time it. I leave my apartment at 7:50 every morning.
I'm always just a little bit late. Just like
is it typically like? Do you normally? I know sometimes you've seen me like as I'm crossing. Like where Virginia comes out there. Yeah. But sometimes do you see me like already across the road?
Yeah,
like,
that's most of the time I see you already across there. You're like walking up past the archives or whatever through there.
Typically, we're on about the same schedule then, I think.
Yeah. Well.
It's comfortable. I always put my music on. I call my mom sometimes, talk to her. So
that's nice.
You know.
A little bit of a morning stroll. See, I miss that's one of the reasons why I was so fit in college is because I had to walk everywhere. And if I wasn't walking somewhere, I generally took the bus.
Yeah, I don't know. At Marshall, I got used to long walks there just because it always seemed like my classes were on the complete opposite side of campus from my apartment. So, that was... I knew that was going to happen when I picked my major, but I was like, it won't be bad. I'll ride my bike. And then my bike broke, and I was like, I'm broke. I can't get another one. So,
well, if I remember correctly, when I visited... and I'm just trying to geolocate. And that's a fancy word that us geographers use. Myself, when I was there for the first time, now I've been to Huntington before, but at Marshall when it was like one of the first weekends.
Oh yeah.
And it was my freshman year and your freshman year.
I remember this. And
we did a walk that was from these apartments called The Village.
That's where I lived.
Yeah, The Village. Yep. And The Village is like over on the other side of town. It's like across like train tracks, and it's like right near the train tracks. If I'm
so the train tracks go right behind it.
Isn't there like there's like a coffee shop? There used to be a coffee shop that was like right in front of it. That sometimes I would play gigs at, which I'm in a very loud rock band, and it was kind of weird that they would book us.
That coffee shop back in the day was called the High Amp. It was like the Huntington. It was literally just like a venue. That was all it was. And like Paramore played there. I think Taking Back Sunday played there once. The Used, like all sorts of bands used to play there. It was actually a very big, like I think Rise Against was there, like one of the last bands that played there. Because it was just this big empty room with a stage. Like and it was both sides of it rather than like the one side with the coffee shop. But it was just open. And apparently that was the spot for shows, which it always made me hate that I didn't go to Marshall sooner because I was like, I lived a 20-second walk from the doors. So I was like, Paramore was right there. Like these big bands were right here next to my apartment.
You could have hit it off with Haley Williams. You could be living a different life right now.
I mean, if she's listening, there's no way she is in a million years.
She could be.
Listen, Haley, listen to my voice real quick. I love you. That is all. Okay. But yeah, it was right there, and I had to get in the zone there for a second because I love that woman with all of my heart.
She's delightful. I got to see her with one of the number one cute girls. I have a lot of cute. Of course, my wife is up there. But let me tell you, Gwen Stefani.
That was a good save.
Gwen Stefani. Doing like the push-ups and like all the stuff with No Doubt when she was like real punk and
she's like gotten even hotter as she's gotten older though, which is
I don't understand. And she's had like a 18 billion kids.
Yeah, I'd still love her. But Haley, yeah, like when I heard Misery Business for the first time, I knew. I had when I heard it, I had not even seen her yet, but I knew. And I don't think my grandmother always tells me this quote. She says, "The bone that's laid down for you, no other dog shall take away." I think that Haley Williams is my bone that no other dog shall take away. I think that it's true love, and eventually, who knows? Maybe she'll find out.
Well, so the Village near this coffee shop, and I remember. I had been to a Marshall game, and it was a Marshall Virginia Tech game, and
we got killed.
You got killed. And you very likely could have killed us because you never know. I think for both teams, you never know who's going to come out.
Well, 2 years later, we went to Blacksburg and almost won.
You did, and
I remember triple overtime.
And I thought
in
to
the
myself,
rain.
they should have won because we played like crap.
We almost had it. But okay, back to it. Villaggio, Virginia Tech game. I keep getting us off track.
No, you're good. So I remember I showed up and I had I sat in the student section because I had buddies there, and I wore like a maroon and maroon and orange shirt that said
you had the gobble
bitches.
Yep, I remember that because I was like, David, you sure you want to do that?
And I had some beer cans thrown at me, but let me tell you, it was all wonderful by the second half when it was like the score was kind of blown out of proportion. It was very nice.
Marshall fans are typically not too bad.
Nah,
they'll give you a little bit of grief.
Yeah.
But no one fights people.
No.
Like if you go to Morgantown sometimes.
If I did that in Morgantown, I'd be dead.
Yeah. Some WVU fans are very serious.
Yes.
Which I grew up, I was a diehard WVU fan, but I'm not anymore. I'll root for them when they're not playing Marshall. But some of their fans are diehard. They don't play games.
Yeah.
So if Marshall ever plays WVU again and they're playing in Morgantown, I will not be wearing a Marshall shirt because I value my life. I don't want to get in a fight with someone. So.
No. I've heard some stories, but I can as a VT fan.
Yes.
And the WVU fans, we can all come together and like a VTU. You know, of course, Vol Tech University.
I like Virginia Tech too. Because my stepdad, obviously Virginia Tech, so he took me to a lot of games. So I am kind of in this weird spot where I root for Marshall because I went there. I root for Virginia Tech, but then I also will root for WVU, which is kind of unheard of. I feel like you can't typically like all three. But I really I like seeing the state do well, and I like seeing Virginia look good. So because I obviously spent much of my life in Virginia, pretty much as I was in West Virginia.
I mean, we're like, we're two sides of the coin. Yeah,
I was basically a Virginia native too. I feel like. So.
I mean, I was basically, West Virginia. That's the beauty of living in Bluefield. But so back to it. The Village. Start there. Yeah. When I was a freshman, walking was so big, and it was such an innate part of it. And we walked all the way from the Village, which is on the clear other side of campus, all the way to a bar that used to be called the Thirsty Whale.
Oh, the Thirsty Whale.
And that trek was a long long
Yes.
trek.
Yes. So the bar that most of us go to now is called the Union, which is about 3 blocks further than the Thirsty Whale. And there were some nights before Uber came around that I would have to walk, and I lived in the very back corner of the village, like as far
Okay,
back
so
you
you
could
were
go.
like, okay.
So I would have to walk. It was easily like a mile and a half to get home. And Huntington at night can be a little scary.
It can be.
Especially like there were some nights, and I'm really glad my mom doesn't listen to the podcast because she would freak out. I've never disclosed this with her. Some nights, you know, if I just didn't feel like being out anymore and my buddies were still going, you know, they were still just drinking or whatever, I was like, yeah, I'll just walk home. And every time, I never learned my lesson because every time I would get about 3/4 of the way home to like the most sketchy part of the walk. And then I was like, this was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I'd start seeing people, like random people walking that like weren't college students. And I'm like, oh God, this is where I die. One night, someone yelled to me and told me, hey, wait. And I did not know who they were. And I took the corner to where they couldn't see me again, and I have never
booked
ran
it.
so fast in my life. Well, then I like cut through the alley that I knew like there wasn't going to be anybody in, like near my apartment. And I got home and I locked the door and I was done. I didn't walk home after that. But thank God for Uber now. That's how we kind of get around. But at that time, you just kind of had to risk your life to get home from the bar.
Yeah, and there's one thing about West Virginia, and it's a positive thing. It can be a negative thing. It can be a little bit collectively together. They're characters.
Yes.
Every town has their characters. There are characters for Charleston. There are characters for Huntington.
Every town.
Every town.
No matter where you are, what state, there's always going to be someone.
And they're always out on Friday night.
Yes.
They are collectively
Yes.
out. Doing who knows what, being themselves.
Yes.
But with walking itself, from that year, I was so used to it. I did this huge, what I would call my personal journey, in Huntington across the way, and now it's like, you know, I'm sitting pretty here in my house, and you get to still walk to work, and I just get fatter every day. So,
I feel like if I didn't walk to work, oh God, I can't imagine. Like, that's my little bit of exercise. Lately, I've been trying to run, but
yeah,
it's nice to get the extra steps. I feel a little bit better, but makes me feel a little bit better about myself because typically I just, like when I was at the bank, I didn't get that many steps in when I worked at the bank. So, you know.
When I worked at the bank, they just had a shake weight there, and I thought it was a little inappropriate to be standing at the bank teller station just having
a shake weight.
Shake weight. By the way, if you're from Bluefield and you have a summer job, you either work at Food City.
Yep, I did that.
Yeah, Food City, or you work at the bank.
Did that too.
Those are the key summer jobs.
Or Walmart. Walmart's another one.
Walmart,
not as much as like either Food City or Kroger were like the two top grocery stores to go work at, and then all
Food City was like that was like where the connections happen. That's like the melting pot of Bluefield.
That was Bluefield and Graham. That was where
was
all
like-
the rivalry just simmered out.
Everybody can simmer over hate of the management of that particular food.
That's
city.
how I met Nick Thompson there, Nathan.
Yeah,
and then subsequently met you through them, and
it's all that Food City connection.
Gosh, there were a lot of As much as I hated that place with every ounce of anything in me,
yes,
I'm glad I worked there.
It's learning.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. But every time I go in a Kroger or like a Food Lion or anything now, and I just get that grocery store smell, I feel like I get PTSD sometimes to when I was having to like stock stuff and go to the back and clean stuff up, and it brings back memories. But you know,
well, see, my favorite thing to do when it's talking about grocery stores is making a list. You know what we also have a list of? Fallout 76 news. So with that, we'll get into the next segment.
That was the smoothest transition we've had on the show thus far.
You're very welcome. Austin, we've got a few things in the news, but just so we're clear, I want to be upfront with everybody. Beta coverage. Beta coverage is going to happen next week. This week, I'm probably out of town. I'm probably doing something out of town, probably busy doing whatever. We're kind of a week ahead here. But we're going to have full beta coverage. And what do we mean by beta coverage is we're going to talk about the fact that we played the beta. And we're going to kind of give some insight as to what we thought, what we were thinking, and what we learned. So prepare for that next week. You excited, Austin, about that?
Very excited.
On a level from chilled, like a Coors Light, to like juiced, like a freshly squeezed orange juice. What are you?
Juice like a freshly squeezed orange juice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Didn't even have to think about it.
Excellent. So here's a few pieces of news that we have. So this week, in a tweet, Pete Hines confirms that mods for Fallout 76 may not arrive till a year after release, which is kind of, to me, the same as Fallout 4 for PlayStation. It was about
Yeah.
a
It was
year.
a while before mods came around, I think. But
And with that, I think it has to deal with the idea of private servers.
Yes.
Kind of driving on that point.
I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it that they probably have to sort out. And
Yeah.
they've been mostly, I would...
Trying to get the main package,
I'd say they've had a lot to focus on for now that may be important.
When you're selling a car, you don't think about the paint first. You think
Yeah.
about the
You got to get the
parts and
structure
pieces.
down and
Yeah.
the logistics of everything.
then you
so,
can buff it out a little
yeah,
bit later.
So we'll get there. I genuinely haven't even thought about
A lot of
mods.
people have, especially a lot in the PC community, are
Yeah.
super into mods. For me, I take,
never
and just
cared.
it's my preference. It's I like to be. I like it when companies are consumer minded, and I think that's good. On a lot of the time though, with video games, there's like Nintendo is very like they utilize the thought process of we make a product for you, and there's going to be pieces that you aren't necessarily like we haven't thought all the way through or aren't ready for you to use. But this is the product that we have, and that's going to be it.
Right.
With what they have. And in their case, they make a lot of really fantastic, like Mario, Zelda, fantastic products. And Bethesda has I can honestly say, every single Bethesda property that I have played has been a fantastic product.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm excited, of course. Let's see. And another piece of news, there has been stress tests happening. I don't know if you saw that. Right now it's happening on the Xbox One through a partnership with Xbox Insider. These are for people who have pre-ordered Fallout 76 digitally or directly through the Bethesda store, who are also signed up to be a member of Xbox Insider. So I'm not an Xbox person. You have an Xbox.
I have an Xbox, but since I've gotten a PlayStation, I cut all the extra Xbox
stuff. Yeah, there's
I figure I'll put all my money onto like PlayStation Plus and all that stuff.
You're coming over here. You're joining my coalition here. You gotta
We're in this together.
work with the devil, you know.
We're in this together.
Yes. we will rebuild, Austin.
Oh yes.
We will rebuild.
Oh yes.
One interesting piece of news that broke right before we recorded this show is that the PS4 beta dates have been announced that they run from October 31st, like they had originally stated, but all the way to November 11th.
Yeah. So decent little amount of time there.
Yeah.
Actually, a really good amount of time.
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like not necessarily a beta, but more like
You're just kind of
early access for testing,
Yeah.
and all of your progress carries over. So
which is super
it's
sweet.
like more of the problem that I will encounter as I go through the months of November, December, of whether I'm going to play Red Dead or Fallout.
Yeah, I'm really nervous about.
Here's the thing: I've thought about this, and this is dumb, I know, but whatever I'm feeling that day, and I'm not gonna,
It's a good problem to have.
it's a great. This year in video games, this year has been
Amazing.
insane.
Yes.
I do not understand.
We have been #blessed. With,
We've
I mean,
been
like, if you
blessed.
think about it, Spider-Man. All right, so I'll go back. God of War, easily one of my favorite games I've ever played in my entire life. Spider-Man, another one of like possibly top 10 favorite game I've ever played in my entire life. I would like to imagine that both Red Dead and Fallout will also be some of my favorite games that I will play in my life. I feel like I don't remember a year this good video game wise.
I mean, and this
in terms of my interest at least.
it's and even I mean if you think about it, this year has been the year of Fortnite as well.
I didn't even think Fortnite. Fortnite took Battle Royale.
I mean, even
everything
though it
took over the
technically
world.
released about 2 or 3 years ago,
But
like
this was
the mode itself wasn't fully the product that it is till 2018.
Like 2017, it was picking up steam like late last year because I remember people were playing it. But I feel like leading into this spring, summer, it was just like it took the world by storm. And it's still like, I mean, I haven't played it in like a month, but from what I'm seeing online, it's still picking up steam. And it just blows my mind that it is totally free. If you don't want to pay for anything, you don't have to pay for anything.
Yeah, it's a crazy year.
I mean,
so
Black Ops 4, like Battle Royale, just it's honestly, it makes me excited though. I hope the trend continues into next year with more games. Which I mean, from what I'm seeing, it looks like there's more good games coming. So, I mean, like I said, I don't remember a time where this many great games have come out consecutively, like within a short span of each other. So
it's good
lucky.
Problems to have overall.
Yes, absolutely.
So a little piece that I wanted to include here in the news that is also like hot off the press, but as this episode doesn't release for a week after record, it's not going to be that particularly hot anymore. But
did you guys hear about this?
Yeah. So Bethesda sent out a tweet today that clarified some lore that a lot of people have had issue with. Tweet goes, November 2077, a month after the Great War, Army Captain Roger Maxson arrived with survivors at the California bunker of Lost Hills. There he formed the Brotherhood of Steel, who used a functioning satellite to extend their reach across America, all the way to Appalachia. So people were wondering how the Brotherhood of Steel was in the game. In one tweet, it's like, here's how they knew. Here's what they were doing. And to kind of pimp it out, I did an episode with Lore Party where we talked about the history of the Brotherhood of Steel and their relation in Fallout 76. And this was recorded several weeks ago. And this was my one, like I had a few options, but this was my very first option that I gave out of how they were able to do it. So if you want more info on that, you can check them out at loreparty.com. I've included a bonus episode that should be released on the page by now that you can kind of listen to my full theory through our stuff, but it helps to kind of have that background from their main episode through there.
You're just a genius.
I'm telling you what, if I'm right about... Here's the thing. Remember the deal. If I'm right about everything... They
better be changing some stuff.
They gotta hire me. I mean,
I'll
take the last name Howard. I'll take the last name Howard. I don't care. Whatever.
Just co-CEO.
Yeah, I'll be.
You guys could get along real well. Like
Todd Howard Jr. Todd
even
Howard.
If like they just hire you as like his personal assistant, I think that would be cool. Like,
dude,
even
I'd be Todd Howard's mini me.
That would be cool. Learn from him.
Yeah, that's the deal. That's the unofficial deal that we have. I'm announcing a partnership.
Did they get back to you on the last episode? Did they tell you that they were cool with it? Because I figured they would. I figured they'd be like, yeah, if you guess it right, like you're
still, in. We gotta work through these lawyers, man. There's a bunch of lawyers and different stuff. So with that, we will get into our big topic. Austin, I noticed recently that it is getting a little darker outside, and there are some strange people walking around. And I noticed that the lightning has struck a chimney in a distance, and I hear the howl of ghouls.
That's more like a wolf,
but imagine it's a ghoul. So last week, Austin, I challenged you to essentially bring in some ghost stories. And try to scare the bejesus out of me. And I'm going to bring in some ghost stories and try to scare the bejesus out of you. Now, these ghost stories are particular to West Virginia. Yes. And in Fallout 76, there are, as we saw in the gameplay, some haunted elements to certain locations. And we're not really quite sure what ghosts or what ghost stories are going to be in the game, but we kind of wanted to get in the season, get in that
Get in the
candy
spirit
corn
here.
mindset, and
Candy
give
corn
you
is gross.
candy corn is delightful, and you need to shut your mouth.
What was it
next time
Lewis
you
Black
talk.
said? All candy corn in the world was made in 1923 or something like that. And every year they just keep going around and gathering it all up from all the dumpsters and they just put it back out the next year.
This is blasphemy in my house. I will not hear any more of this, but I will hear of your story you've got.
You want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
I'm going to ease into this.
Okay.
I've got a few. But
Okay.
this first one, I'm easing into
I'm
the
gonna get
ghosts.
into the mindset here. I'm gonna get my listening ears on. And I'm gonna close the blinds.
All right.
This is me closing the blinds.
All right. Here we go.
All right.
This one is titled 22 Mine Road. Are you familiar with 22 Mine Road?
No, I'm not.
Are you familiar with Mamie Thurman?
I've heard the name.
All right. In Logan County, in the early 1900s, I'm getting my spooky voice here.
Okay, I like
In the
that.
early 1900s, there was a woman named Mamie Thurman. Mamie was a popular woman known throughout the town. She was the wife of Jack Thurman, who was a Logan County police officer. One morning in 1932, a young man was picking blackberries on a mountain near Logan on a road known as Mine Road 22. He stumbled upon something peculiar, and upon further review, he discovered that it was a dead body. I think you know where I'm going with this. It was Mamie Thurman. Her throat had been slit from ear to ear. Her neck was broken, her face was disfigured, and she had 2 gunshot wounds to her head. It was a little bit of overkill, in my opinion, but,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
okay. Like a simple, like, getting shot would have sufficed probably, but okay. So she was still in possession of all of her belongings, so they knew it wasn't a burglary. And then the day after her body was discovered, Harry Robertson and his handyman Clarence Stevenson, who were also, prominent Logan County residents, they were both arrested. Sorry, my phone just turned off. I had to get it pulled back. Okay. So Harry Robertson admitted to the police that he had an ongoing affair with Mamie. But when he went in front of a jury, many of the townspeople noticed that a lot of the jury members were closely associated with Robertson, and some of them were associated with Mamie and had been known to have been running around with her in the past. The plot thickens. Ooh. So, Robertson's handyman Clarence Stevenson ended up being indicted for murder, while Robertson got off clean, despite a lot of witnesses coming forward and confirming every minute of Clarence's whereabouts and basically having an alibi for him that was verified. So then Stevenson got sent to Moundsville Prison and died 10 years later. But today, a lot of people report strange occurrences on 22 Mine Road. Some have said that they see a woman in very outdated clothing standing alongside the road on top of the mountain. The local youth is often dared to visit the spot at night, but the most peculiar thing is on the actual road that she was found beside. Legend has it that if you put your car in neutral on 22 Mine Road, your car will actually roll backward up the mountain to the spot where the body was found. And many believe that that is Mamie Thurman pushing people back to where her body was left. I have looked this up, and I know people from Logan who have confirmed that is a real thing. And they have tried it, and your car will roll back up the hill if you put it in neutral.
So
uphill.
Cool. Oh my god.
Yeah. I want to try it. And
I've got
apparently
chill bumps right now thinking about it.
it's legitimately like an hour from here. And there's videos online of it, and I thought, oh well, that's fake. They're putting it in reverse.
yeah.
One of my friends that lives there has told me that she and her friends tried it once in the car, and it's not like it's like barely. I mean, it's like this, pretty decent, kind of steep decline, and the car slowly started rolling back up the hill.
That's like one of those things.
Yeah.
That's like one of like the Matrix is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those.
Yeah.
Something has occurred here.
Yeah.
To make there be essentially a glitch.
Yeah. Well, some of the stuff I also read about it said that it's only at night that people will see. It's like a white dress a woman in a white dress on the side of the road, and it's kind of like they just barely catch a glimpse of it, but when they look, like nothing's there. It's like a very big local legend in Logan County, apparently.
I've heard of Marmy Thurman before. I'd not heard the story before.
Yeah, but that's where that comes from.
That stuff with the car going up neutral and that's like
it's weird.
That's like some of the things that it's like people have these occurrences of like things that shouldn't happen, but just
like there's no explanation. Like how does your car roll uphill? It doesn't make sense. You do that anywhere else, your car is going to go downhill. That's nonsense. So I don't know. So that was me. That was me easing into it. So that was my first one. So I'm going to pass over the.
Okay. Well, I only brought one today, but I did it with the sole intention of scaring you.
I'm ready. I like getting scared. Let's do it.
So let's get a little personal here. So. You know, you're a Bluefield High School student. You know, I'm a Graham High School student. Oftentimes, you take a girl on a date, you do a number of different things. Yeah, that sounds kind of weird.
Sounds a little strange, but
but like you would take them to parks and stuff. Like you would go and have fun. Have you ever been to Shawnee Park?
We used to drive by it sometimes at night when we were bored.
Yeah, when you were bored.
So I've been there, though.
So you've been there. So you know what it looks like.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like video game Last of Us, where it's like all kind of
abandoned.
Yeah, it's abandoned. It's got all this stuff there.
I'm hoping to go there this year, actually.
Oh, you're gonna go again?
Yeah. So is this gonna get me in the spirit for it? Right now?
This. I mean, if it gets you in the spirit to go, then it's an adrenaline thing, but it also might deter you.
Okay. Well, let's hear it.
I'm
not
sure. So. Mitchell Clay was a frontiersman who left his colonial American home to settle in the nearby Appalachian Mountains in what is now Princeton, West Virginia. Mitchell established a small farm and a homestead for himself and his 3 children, making him the first colonial settler in Mercer County. Mitchell liked to hunt, and he would often scour the area with the help of his children for food and resources, like we'll have to do in Fallout 76. One day, Mitchell's family came upon a Shawnee Native American tribe. They began to attack each other. The Shawnee killed his daughter Tabitha and his son Bartley. They then kidnapped his son Ezekiel and took him all the way to Ohio, only to burn him at the stake. While Native American burial grounds are common in West Virginia, clashing with the local colonials left little time to construct proper storage for their dead. This led Native Americans to establish large unmarked burial grounds, including one near a lake in what is now Princeton, West Virginia. Clay knew that these areas were sacred to the local tribe and gathered a gang of frontiersmen to stake a claim to the land. The Shawnee tribe would not stand for this, and this began a second conflict in which the Shawnee tribe was ultimately killed on the same land they had buried their friends and family. While the colonials were successful, there were still serious casualties, including one Mitchell Clay. The land was then used for farming for several generations. Fast forward. In 1920s, a businessman named Conley T. Sniddow, Conley T. Sniddow, that's his name, purchased the site of Clay Farm and laid out a plan to develop it into an amusement park. Conley went on to build a large Ferris wheel, a circular swing set, and open up a pond for public swimming. The park was a hit with the local population, and was a nice change of pace from the rural life that is West Virginia, especially during the 1920s. One day, an employee of the park was carting around some supplies. It had been a full day of work for him, and he was tired. Since he was employed by the park, he had free rein to drive his truck on park grounds. When he was backing up to leave, he looked behind him to see if anything was there, and there wasn't. He wasn't paying attention, and he hit the gas a little too hard, and that's when he heard a loud crash. Looking back, he could now see a giant circular swing set tangled in his truck while hearing the shrieking of nearby mothers. He got out to see a sight. It was the sight of a young girl in a pink dress, lying on the ground, broken and bloody. This is the first incident that occurred in the park. And the employee was quickly let go and charged with involuntary manslaughter. Just months later, the young boy had jumped into the pond. It was a hot summer day, and it was perfect for swimming. While he was paddling, an urge overcame him, and he froze in place while in the water. And he began to sink, but he couldn't move. A few moments later, he quickly regained his feeling and began to paddle out, but it was too late. He was too far down, and his breath wouldn't hold out for much longer. After these deaths, 4 more children died soon after in frightful incidents, eventually leading to the park to shut down in 1966. The park was left abandoned, and the local flora began to envelop the structures built there, till it was all returned to nature, essentially. You can still go there. You can still sit on the swing set in a grassy field. You can look at the Ferris wheel. You can even paddle boat and go out in the pond just for a bit. Just be careful. You may see an extra rider on the swing set wearing a pink and blood-stained dress. You may hear gurgling from the nearby pond. You may hear the echo of tribal drums through the trees, and you may smell the gunpowder of a vengeful father. You may feel a presence overtake you as your mind and body both tragically betray you. How you feeling about visiting now, buddy?
I want to go, man. I've heard that story before. It's been forever. But that still just scared the hell out of me thinking about it. Because, like, you know, remember it was on, like, it was, like, on one of the, it was, like, Travel Channel's scariest places in the world or something like that. That place is really scary.
It looks scary, and it is the most Fallout-esque location of anywhere.
Just this abandoned amusement park. Like, it's still there. Like, you can just see a Ferris wheel and swings and everything. It's terrifying.
And it's like in that old like 1920s like decoration, like the weird like colors that have rusted over the Ferris wheel.
And they do like the dark carnival where you can like tour overnight basically, and they like give you tours and stuff. So it's kind of creepy. Ooh, man.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that I liked about it is I've been reading a lot of Stephen King. Here recently, been reading The Shining, and his whole thing is about Native American burial grounds. And how,
I don't mess with that stuff. That stuff, that's the real deal.
And that's part. It's there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those in West Virginia. There's an immense amount, and like for example, South Charleston, entirely built around Native American burial ground.
Yeah.
It's a gigantic hill just in the middle of the town.
Yeah.
And in Stephen King's works, most of his ghost apparition stuff stem back to Native American burial grounds. And I thought that it was particularly interesting that this business and this like capitalistic thing had been haunted by the spirit of these people to say, you can't do that on this land.
Pretty much, like get off of our land, essentially. Ooh, okay.
You got some more, so let me hear one from you.
All right. So this one is titled The Van Scoy House. Are you familiar with this one?
No, I'm not.
All right. So I learned this one today, actually. All right. See, I didn't write mine as dramatic as you. I kind of was more straightforward with my facts, but I appreciate how dramatic yours was because
that's what
it made
I do.
It creepy.
I just
I
talk too much, and I.
All right. So Van Scoy was a resident of Huntington in the 1970s. He and his family purchased an old Victorian house. That's red flag one. It's an old Victorian house. Always going to end up bad.
This house you're sitting in right now, by the way, was built in 1918. And it's 100 years old right now. I have a murder basement.
So he and his family purchased an old Victorian house on 6th Street in Huntington and remodeled it into their dream home. The house was large. It had about 12 rooms, 4 dormers, and it was packed with artifacts from the 19th century when they bought it. Most of the old artifacts were hauled away during the remodel, except for an old black suitcase that he found and locked away in an upstairs bedroom. Several months passed until one night, Van's son Harold awakened at 2 a.m., claiming that he awoke to find a woman in all black standing over his bed staring at him. He explained that she had long black hair, strange clothes that did not fit the current century. The woman reportedly spoke to Harold, but he could not understand anything she was saying. And then the family searched the house but found nothing inside. So nothing out of the ordinary happened for a few months until the Scoy family had relatives visiting for a holiday. One of the small children that were with their relatives claimed that she saw a man with a heavy black beard staring at her through the window one night. So Van peered over the TV and out the window to see that indeed there was a man with a long black beard staring inside with blank eyes. So Van ran outside, circled the house. No one was there. One morning not long after that, Harold was preparing to head to class at Marshall University when he walked by his bedroom to see a man standing next to his bed. The man was probably 25 or 26. He was wearing clothes suitable for the 1800s, and he had long sideburns but no beard. Harold claims that the two faced each other for a few seconds, dead silent, and then the man slowly disappeared upward into the ceiling. The family got together, obviously, to discuss all of the occurrences, and then they had a revelation. They thought maybe the black suitcase was the source. They opened the suitcase and discovered old photographs, cards, notes. In some of the photographs, there was an old farmhouse with a great amount of farmland around it with a white picket fence. Some of the photos contained a family on the farm in old 19th century clothing, dated June 10th, 1886. Harold recognized the mother in the photo as the woman that was standing over him at 2 a.m. The black bearded man that Van had spotted was also in the picture, as well as the man found standing next to Harold's bed. The family decided they needed to find the farmhouse and try to transport the suitcase there to return the family back to their home. And over the next year, they searched hundreds of old records to discover the location of the farmhouse. But finally, they discovered that the house in the photo was actually the house that they were living in. Huntington had developed so much since then that the house was actually unrecognizable. The family promptly moved from the home, leaving behind only the suitcase locked away in the attic for the next family to discover. Boom. That one freaked me out today.
That is terrifying.
The thought of someone standing over me while I'm sleeping is one of my top fears. So I don't mess with that either. Native American burial grounds, people looking at me while I'm sleeping. Those are the two things I cannot tolerate.
It was crazy. You were telling that story, and at the same time, there were church bells outside, and it was like just in the distance, like in the background, you could hear the church bells. Oh my God, dude!
I have one more, but I don't even have it written down. I'm just gonna try to.
Well, first, this suitcase, I find it. I am like taking it to a church in a garbage can, getting the lighter fluid, sitting it like spraying the lighter fluid down, putting it on the altar, throwing a match in there, and be like, "You're done."
Oh yeah, listen,
you're done.
This it made me think. The reason it kind of freaked me out so much is because when my parents moved back like years ago to a new house in Kentucky, and I was still living with them at the time, at least for that summer before I went back to school. We were loading up stuff into the new attic, just putting boxes up there. And my mom had me climb up the ladder, and I was in the attic. And I noticed something back in the back corner, which also, side note, before we moved there, my first question to the realtor was, is this place haunted? Has there been anything said about this? And she was like, no, blah, blah, blah. But I was genuinely concerned because I knew that my old house wasn't, because my family built it. Like, no one, it was, I knew everything about the house. This house, obviously, other people had lived there. I think someone had died there. Like, I was freaked out. So I'm up in the attic, and she's handing me boxes, and it was really dark. And I was like, Mom, hand me a flashlight. So I get the flashlight, and I shine it back. And there is a lamp plugged into the wall in the corner with a giant portrait just sitting back there. And it was of, like, an Indian, Native American, and, like, colonial, like it was like a battle, and there were people getting slaughtered and all this stuff, and it was just in this back, like hanging next to a lamp that was plugged in. That was all that was in the attic. Scared the hell out of me. I made them get rid of it. Like, I was like, we ain't keeping that here.
You nope out of that one. You nope as fast as you can.
So nothing ever happened in the house. I never really had anything. One night I woke up and I swore I saw someone walk into my closet, which was weird. But I think I was just like half asleep, so I don't think that was real. But other than that, nothing ever happened. But just finding that and then hearing this about the suitcase freaked me out. I don't know. But apparently, like, that was something that, like, these people apparently like went and told a newspaper about it. Like, it was like a big deal that this had happened to them, apparently. In Huntington, and like, you know.
So is that house is still there, though,
I think
right?
so. I would like to see what house it is. It's on 6th Street, which is like not really West Huntington. That's like kind of down near the bridge, like kind of close to Pullman, but probably back a little bit. So, because there's a lot of old houses down there. So it's probably kind of close to Ritter. I wouldn't doubt, realistically. So, but the other story I have is also a Huntington story. Have you ever heard of the ghost of 5th Street Hill?
No.
Do you know what 5th Street Hill is in Huntington?
No.
All right. So coming off of Interstate 64 when you're going into Huntington, there's the Hal Greer exit, which is a popular one. But if you keep going, like if you're going toward Kentucky, the next exit is the 5th Street Hill exit, which when you take that exit, you can go left to go toward Wayne, go out Wayne, or you can go right, and it takes you up over the hill down right into like the Ritter Park area. So it's a very heavily trafficked area going down into Huntington. Apparently, in the early 1900s, there was a couple that was going toward Wayne to get married. And they, I guess this was late enough in the 1900s that there were vehicles. And they were in a very old vehicle, and they crashed because it was rainy. It was storming. And they crashed the car, and the bride-to-be died in the car accident. It was on 5th Street Hill. And nowadays, and I heard this as soon as I got to Huntington. When I went to Marshall, I started hearing about this story. There have been sightings around it's always around midnight, apparently, and it always has to be rainy. But people say that they see a woman in a white gown hitchhiking at the top of 5th Street Hill. And a lot of them have picked her up, and she'll speak to them. It's always cold. It's on cold nights, apparently. And I read a story of someone, again, like this was in a newspaper back in the day, and he said that he asked her, you know, where's your jacket? She was like, I haven't worn a jacket in years. And then he'll drive her a few minutes, and he'll look, and she's just gone. There's no one in the car with him. Vanished.
I think I've heard this, actually, of somebody maybe having an experience where they picked her up
and then she's just gone. Door didn't open, nothing, gone, vanished, poof, thin air. The one that really freaked me out is the man that didn't pick her up, and then she was in his back seat as he drove away. The reason that freaks me out so much is because I take 5th Street Hill often when I go toward Ashland.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's at night when I've like gone to the bar or gone to a restaurant with some buddies, and then I will go see my parents, which they live 20 minutes away. So I hop back on 64 from 5th Street Hill. And I have driven that road at midnight in the rain before, and every time I am paranoid when I'm driving. I'm just waiting to see someone. But apparently a few years ago, someone said they saw her and that they stopped the car because they said that they drove by them and they had heard the story before.
Did they Vine it?
This was around the Vine, like 2013. But they said that I remember seeing this on social media at the time when I was at Marshall. They said they drove by it and they had heard the story before. So they went on down and then they were like, oh, I'll stop, I'll see. And they pulled off like about 50 yards down the hill, like over the hill from her. And then they stopped and they looked and they didn't see anyone. And they were getting back in their car and they looked again and saw a woman running down the hill toward them in a white dress. So he was like, I got in my car and drove away. Like I wasn't staying for that.
Yeah, I'm open right out of that.
So it's just kind of weird because obviously like I travel that road regularly. And so the thought of that being haunted freaks me out. But
have you ever actually like seen anything? Like,
I have personally.
So tell me a little bit about
Long
that.
story short, I was actually it wasn't in West Virginia though, but this is why I believe in ghosts.
Okay.
I had never had an experience before this, but my dad's house near Charlotte, North Carolina, my dad passed away in 2015. And after he passed away, the house always had kind of like a good vibe,
energy.
good aura, good energy. I don't know what word you want to use for it.
Feng shui.
Felt like he was kind of there watching over everything. And this was in 2015. I had a job interview in Charlotte on a Monday following a Panthers Sunday playoff game against the Seahawks. So I went down for the game, and the interview was going to be at 9 a.m. the next day. Well, my stepmom and my brother and sister were out of town. So I was going to stay at the house by myself, which the house is out in the woods. And it's always been kind of creepy, but I've stayed there by myself so many times, I didn't really care. I you know, they had lived there for 10 years at the time. I was comfortable with it, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I pulled up to the house at like 11 because I had been at the game all day, went out to eat afterward. Pulled up to the house. It was pitch black. Lisa hadn't left any of the lights on, obviously. And I was on the phone with my mom, and I was like, hey, I'll call you back. You know, I'm going to get everything inside. I walk in the house, and it was like immediately something hit me. I got short of breath. I like got anxious just out of nowhere. I was fine until I walked in, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, it just felt like something literally just punched me in the chest. Like, this energy just hit me. And I walked in, and I turned the lights on, and I was just like, man, something's not right. Like, it just didn't feel right at all. And all of a sudden, I heard a thump.
As the dogs bark in the background.
I heard a thump upstairs. And I was like, that's weird. Well, I thought, oh, maybe they left Sugar, the dog. They have a dog named Sugar. I was like, oh, they left Sugar. You know, she's probably upstairs. And she's a very lazy dog. Like, whenever I show up, she never comes running downstairs. So I was like, oh, she's upstairs.
Dogs are like that.
So I walked upstairs. Nothing. Texted my little sister. We took Sugar to the border. Like, she's at the border. So I was like, great, awesome. I heard a thump downstairs. I was like, I'm gonna die tonight. Like, this isn't cool. So I called my mom. I was like, hey, just like stay on the phone with me, because my first thought was, oh God, someone's in the house.
Yeah.
So I got my pocket knife out, thinking that's gonna help me, and I was like, hey, just like stay on the phone with me for a minute.
You pint-sized slasher.
Yeah. I looked in, every room.
Yeah.
I knew where my dad's guns were, so I grabbed one of his pistols. Just, I was like, I'll grab this. Nothing. No one's in the house. I searched everywhere. I was like, all right, it's in my head. Yeah. Clearly, I'm paranoid because I'm here by myself. It's me.
You got it in there.
So I went and I got off the phone and I sat down. I turned the TV on in the living room, but I just still felt uneasy. Yeah. And this is the weirdest part. It's really hard to explain, but you don't necessarily have to hear someone walk in to a room, like footstep wise. No. But you can feel like the room, like the frequency almost changes in the room. You can hear just their being.
They are occupying a space.
Yes.
Within it. Yeah.
And I felt that all of a sudden in the living room, and I got real uneasy, and I looked, because like the couch is on the wall, and immediately to the right of the couch is the hallway coming in. So I kind of I glanced around down the hallway, and nothing was there. And I felt it come around me and just stand. It felt like someone was standing right in front of me. So I stood up, and it felt like it was right in my face. Like, it felt like there was someone standing right in my face. Like, I could feel, like, my ears were tingling, like everything. Yeah. And I froze. And it was terrifying. And I was like, I can't do this. So I turned the TV off. I turned the lights off. I got out in my car. I went and got a hotel room that night. I could not stay in that house. And the next day, they got back from the beach, and I did my interview. I got back to the house. I was at the house by myself all day. Nothing. Didn't feel a thing. That night, I was sleeping in my sister's room. She had an extra futon in her room. So she gets in her bed. I'm on the futon, and I was like, hey, Emily, I didn't want to tell them what happened because, she was 10 at the time. I didn't want to freak them out. Or she was probably 11. And I was just like, hey, have you ever had anything weird happen in the house? Creepy, anything going on? She was like, well, I think my room's haunted. And I was like, oh. Well,
how old is she during this time?
She was about 11, maybe 12 almost, probably 11. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, some nights I see shadows on my wall that look like people and they move. And I was like, are you sure it's not like the trees? There's a light outside. I was like, are you sure that's not like the shadow of the trees? She was like, no, it's like full body. It's a person that I see.
Dude, kids are in tune to that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
And I was like, no way. And she was like, well, yeah. She was like, and Mom has seen them too. She was like, Mom brought in a medium to the house and didn't tell her a thing. And the first place the woman went was my room.
Oh, my.
And said that there was, in her words, an energy portal going into the attic from Emily's room, and another one in the backyard. Well, in the backyard is my dad's old photography studio, which leads me to this, where I went back to Charlotte a few months later with my then girlfriend, Mary, and we stayed out in the studio because there was a pull-out couch, everything.
Right.
Like, it was basically an apartment.
You had to set up.
Yeah. So we were staying out there, and I had briefly kind of told her about what happened, but I didn't tell her about the portal.
The
and all
energy
that.
portal in your bedroom.
The bedroom of the studio was basically where my dad used to show proofs to the clients. So outside of that door was the lobby where there was a couch, there were lights.
So like a waiting area, yeah.
Yeah, so we had the lights off in the lobby. We had the lights on in the bedroom. We were getting the bed set up. She's facing the door, and I'm kind of like blocking the door, talking to her. So I bend down to pick up a pillow, and she freaks out and jumps back and almost starts crying, and said that when I bent down like this, that obviously opened her vision to the doorway. She saw a small child walk by. Wasn't Mark, wasn't Emily. I walked out, nothing is there. Not a thing. I didn't sleep well that night. I won't lie. I did not sleep well. It was nice having someone else out there with me, but that is what made it so scary when I moved to Charlotte, because I lived in that studio for a while by myself.
Yeah.
I never had anything happen, though, when I was out there. But overall, freaky stuff. But the worst part is, before I left, before the whole Mary thing, before that trip, I told Lisa, I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, Lisa's my stepmom. I was like, hey, I got a hotel room the other night. This happened. I can't explain it. I was like, and she starts laughing. So I was like, haha, yeah, funny, I know.
Yeah.
She was like, no. She was like, I never wanted to tell you this when you were growing up, but your dad and I used to have things happen in this house that we never could explain. She was like, I didn't want to freak you out when you were a kid. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, doors would open and close, lights would turn on and off, all this stuff would happen, and we could never explain it. Which then took me back to when I was a kid, sleeping upstairs by myself. I used to swear I would hear noises across the hall. And as like a 10-year-old, obviously that freaked me out. And I would come running downstairs to get my dad because, you know, I'm a kid. My dad's like a superhero. Like, I'm wanting him to come up and protect me. And they would be like, go back to bed. There's nothing up there. They've got me sleeping upstairs next to Lucifer himself, like with a portal. And they want to say, oh, you're fine.
You got your energy portal. You got your small
got the
ghost
devil
children
next door. Yeah. So it was weird. But lately, apparently, according to Emily, nothing has happened in years. But it was just terrifying. That was the first time I'd ever experienced something like that. Just having something right in my face, basically like telling me, I don't want you here. Like, that was that vibe. It felt like it was like, get out right now. But since then, and since the little kid thing, like, I haven't had anything happen there, which is good. So I don't know. But that made me before I was a little skeptical, but I was still I believed in spirits. Yeah. I've always believed there was something weird out there. But that made me think, yep, this is real. This is real. But
I have seen stuff that has made me believe.
Yes.
I have seen something that, and this was of like 4 years ago, Austin. I have seen something that was not there, that I knew was not there. And I can see it in my vision right now, and I know exactly what it looks like, and I know exactly it was a guy that was in my apartment when I lived in Blacksburg. Black pants, black shirt, short sleeved, long brown hair. Nobody else was in that apartment, and I saw him walk across into the kitchen, like from me to
like clear as day.
Essentially from me to you, clear as day saw it, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah. You're
Went
like,
check,
what?
Nothing there.
Yeah.
So I believe, but
Definitely.
that's about all the time we have for ghost stories, and I'm sure we could go on. But we do have a piece of reader mail today that I kind of want to talk about.
Okay.
So this is from Andrew. He says, "Hey, Vault Boys. I've been poking around lore of West Virginia and discovered that it is one of 3 states that lay claim to the legendary John Henry. Do you think this will be incorporated into the game? My hope is that we'll find a legendary hammer on a skeleton in a tunnel."
The steel driving man.
Are you familiar with him?
Oh, yes. John Henry.
So I would imagine, to answer your first question, that yes, he's going to be incorporated into the game because Big Ben Tunnel
Yes.
is a confirmed location within the game.
Yeah.
There is a Big Ben Tunnel, and that is where John Henry famously did his steel driving competition. That is where the John Henry statue in West Virginia is located outside of.
I was watching some of the gameplay, and I think I saw someone at Big Ben Tunnel, and that was like my first thought. I was like, I pray to God there's something about John Henry.
Which is kind of fun because if you heard there's news in the John Henry world. I don't know if you've heard the news. Yeah, Netflix is doing an adaptation of John Henry. It is in a folk hero cinematic universe. The executive producer and lead that is playing John Henry, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
What?
So he is the West Virginia steel driving man.
Yes. Do you remember that movie that had like all the folklore characters in it, and like the kid goes on an adventure with them or something like that? It had like John Henry, Paul Bunyan, Johnny Appleseed, like all of these people. Do you remember this though? Like there was like the blue. Who had like the blue?
Paul Bunyan.
Was that Paul Bunyan
Paul
with like
Bunyan
the blue
and the
ox?
ox, yeah.
And it was like all these characters, and it took place in like the early 1900s or maybe late 1800s.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
I don't remember what it was called though, but I just remember this now. Like all these characters of folklore were in it on this kid's adventure or something like that.
Right.
I can't wait for that though. That's so cool.
I could devote a whole episode to John Henry, but as we know, we are limited for time here as we get closer to release. But also I'll add to this note that he has in here, and as you had mentioned before, to send your favorite Tudor's Biscuit World orders. He said that P.S. I'll take a politician biscuit with a large orange juice.
Good man.
So that's from Andrew.
Andrew, you're a good man.
Let's see, Austin. For today, that's it. Don't forget to email us your questions at vaultboyswv@gmail.com. Check us out on social media at vaultboyswv and tell your friends. Don't forget to look into that lore party episode that we did. Go, and we've got a lot of collaborations kind of coming up, so that's kind of fun. We're pimping out some different events. It'll be a lot of fun. But for now, the vault door is closing. Stay safe.
It was a cold night. All right, let's go.
All right. Hello and welcome to episode 2. Nope. I do this every.
You gotta get the
freaking
jitters
time.
out. You gotta. All right.
Hello.
Hello, governor. Welcome to episode 2